Good morning. I'm Abby Gitlitz, and I'm your Vice President of your Board of Directors, and I'm glad that you are able to join us this morning, wherever you are. I'm envisioning you all on Facebook right now, responding in the chat bar, good morning, and seeing who else is joining us. A very warm greeting to those who are visiting us online, whoever you are, whatever path you have traveled, whatever your age, whatever your ability, whomever you love. You are welcome here with us in this liberal religious community. I hope all of you will join us after the service today, where we will be having a coffee hour via Zoom, and we will include more information about that at the end of the service. But please come join us and make connections with your friends here. And please do not silence your electronic devices at this time. Please stay tuned in. I have one special announcement, and this regards email and pledging. So some of you might have gotten emails from PayPal reporting to be from the church. There are a lot of scammers out there right now. So if you get any emails asking you for money from the church, those are not real. We will not send you anything that says, here's PayPal, go online and give us money. If you wish to pledge or if you wish to donate during the service, it's incumbent upon you to go to the link and pledge. But please, please, please do not respond to any emails that might be asking you for money on behalf of the church. We want everybody to be safe, both in terms of your body and your finances at this time. And now, let us find welcome in this place of beauty, justice, and peace. I'd like to invite Reverend Late to the pulpit.
As we're practicing social distancing this morning, I will be speaking from this golden music stand instead of the pulpit. This morning, we're welcoming our Minister Emeritus, the Reverend Bill Breeden. Bill is a longtime peace activist and supporter of refugee rights who's also done extensive work in prison ministry. He's currently providing temporary extra support for the work of social justice in our congregation, and we are so glad to have him back in our pulpit this morning. Welcome, Bill. Also with us today are special guest musicians, Eric Dixon, our trumpet player, and Scott Hogshead, husband of our pianist, Ray Fellman. So if you see them sitting side by side, know that they are not ignoring the social distancing that's required of all of us to protect the health and well-being of each person in our communities. Welcome to Eric and to Scott. It is good to be together today. Beloved members of our congregational community, missing one another, yet remembering that we are gathered this morning. Welcomed newcomers, held wherever you are, our hearts sing with your presence. And all those who are joining us for a time, until your beloved spiritual community gathers again. Welcome all. Welcome for this sacred time held within each of us all around the world. A time to slow down, to breathe, to love. It is good to share it together.
May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery, miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. Sing with us our opening hymn, number 199, Precious Lord, Take My Hand. We will begin with the verse.
I'd like to invite Julie Lawson, member of our board of directors, forward to light our chalices in honor of all those who have had a birthday in our community this week. I hope you're finding new and wonderful ways to celebrate. We light these chalices, lamps of our heritage, for the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, and the spark of the sacred, which calls on each of us to care for our earth. Thank you, Julie. And thank you for your presence here. I'd like to invite forward Theodore Barker to join me for our time for all ages. Hey, Theodore.
How you doing, Reverend Emily?
So good to see you again.
It's good to see you. Been a while.
It's been a while. Yes, I'm glad we're together.
Oh, I am too.
It's a rare and wonderful thing in these days.
It is a rare and wonderful thing.
Yeah.
It touches my heart. I'd like to be with everybody.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, we can be here together and here with the people who are joining us from far away.
Yeah, that's a miracle in itself, isn't it?
It's a wonderful, miraculous thing. So I wonder what the two of you are missing, you and Reverend Bill.
Oh, we miss hugging people and miss coming up. I like to nose people, I got a great nose and I like to sniff them.
Ah, yeah.
Got to keep our distance these days.
Yeah.
I miss it.
Yeah, you miss the smell of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I miss things too. I miss having many people here in our congregation where we can see them and hear them. When we say good morning, they could say good morning back or sing with us. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot that we're missing.
They're probably saying good morning back to us.
They probably are.
Hello,
They probably.
hello.
I can imagine those hellos right back to you, Theodore. Yeah, so I wonder how you're feeling in these days.
Well, sometimes I'm up and sometimes I'm down. And I get down when I think about all the people I can't see, can't be with.
Yeah, there are a lot of feelings happening right now.
Kind of makes me sad.
Sometimes sadness. Yeah, well, I have a story that I'd love to tell you today that has been helping me a little bit in these times when we're so far from the people that we love and care about. Would you like to hear a story?
I love stories. I would love that.
Excellent. Well, you stay a good 6 feet way over there, Theodore, and I'll tell you a story and Reverend Bill a story, and we'll see if it helps you as much as it maybe helps me.
Okie dokie.
Okay. So this story is called The Invisible String by Patrice Karst. And it's about twins. The twins, Jeremy and Liza, had gone to bed. It was a beautiful early spring, and it was quiet and peaceful as they fell asleep. But later on, the rain came, and then it came harder, and then the lightning came, and the thunder, and Jeremy and Liza woke up and went running into the living room. "Mommy, Mommy," they said. "Oh, hello, you two," said their mom. "It's just the storm making all of this noise. You're okay. Go on back to bed." No, said Jeremy. "We're scared. We want to be with you." "But," said their mom, "don't you know that we are always together, even when we're apart?" "How can we be together when we're in bed and you're out here in the living room?" asked Liza. "Ah," said their mom, "we can be together like this." And she held something up. The twins rubbed their sleepy eyes and peered at what Mom was holding. "I was about your age," she said, "when my daddy first told me about invisible string." "I can't see anything," said Jeremy. "No, you don't see invisible string. Invisible string is the love that connects us with all the people we care about." But if we can't see it," said Liza, "how can we know it's there?" "Well, you don't see it with your eyes," said Mom. "You feel it in your heart. That kind of connection with all those we care about. Kind of like when you're at school, back in the days when you went to school, and you miss me. Well, that travels along the invisible string, and I feel it tugging at my heart. And when you tug back," said Jeremy, "we feel it tugging at our hearts." "Yes," said their mom. "It's that connection that we keep with all of those we care about." "Does Jasper the cat have an invisible string?" Does Theodore the dog have an invisible string? Asked Liza. Of course, said Mom. And how about my best friend Lucy? Asked Liza. Yes, best friends too have invisible strings. Wow, said Jeremy. How far can they reach? Oh, said Mom, anywhere and everywhere. The twins consulted with one another. Even if we were captains of submarines way down under the ocean? Even there, said their mom. How about if we were mountain climbers all the way at the top of Mount Everest? Even there, said their mom. How about if we moved to France and became ballet dancers? Yeah, even there. Jungle explorers? Yes, even there. Well, how about if we went to outer space? Yes, said Mom. Invisible string would reach even to space. And then Jeremy got quiet. Mom and Liza looked at him. And then he said, how about Uncle Brian, who died last year? Yeah, said Mom. Invisible string even reaches Uncle Brian. What about when you get angry at us? Asked Eliza. Well, said Mom, I do get angry sometimes, but love is stronger than anger. And as long as there is love in your heart, the invisible string is always there. Even if we argue about which movie to watch, or whose turn it is to do the dishes, or what time you maybe should be going to bed. Hang on, you two should be in bed. And they all laughed as Mom chased Liza and Jeremy back to bed and tucked them in. They snuggled down under the covers and they thought about all the people they loved as they went to sleep. And they dreamed about all the invisible strings, connecting them to Mom and Jasper and their friends and cousins. And all the invisible strings those people had. And all the strings those people had. And those people. Until invisible string connected everyone all around the world. And Liza and Jeremy felt in their hearts, no one is ever alone.
I feel better. I like that story.
I feel that invisible string tugging from my heart to yours, Theodore.
Me too. Thank you.
Even from 6 feet apart.
Yeah, and a strong string.
So much love. So much love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now have a video for a social justice moment from our reproductive task force. They are having 2 fundraisers in the month of April. The Hoosier Abortion Fund is supported by this church and is administered by All Options Pregnancy Resource Center, where they are still taking applications by appointment. The financial need has skyrocketed. All options also have an appointment-only diaper supply service and need even more diapers than usual during this time. The task force is sponsoring the diaper drive where monetary contributions can be used by all options for bulk purchases of diapers. Information and links will be available in the prologue and on Facebook this week that you can help the All Options Pregnancy Resource Center. And now we will see a video.
Hello and good morning from my home to yours. My name is Susan Ellenwood, and I'm a founding member of the Maternal Advocates Resource Alliance here in Bloomington, or MARA for short. I've been asked to speak to you today about a community project we're working on that will not only provide much needed support to new families in our community, but also has the potential to save lives. We've all heard the grim statistics and read the news stories about Indiana's high rate of maternal mortality. What may be surprising to some, however, is that most of these deaths occur outside of the delivery room. And what's more, many of them are preventable. We, the members of MARA, along with other experienced birth professionals in Bloomington, seek to provide community members with the training, education, and tools they need to support families after childbirth, with a focus on recognizing maternal health risks, both physiological and psychological. We believe that everyone can provide support. Our approach is simple. We intend to hold a training seminar in community settings beginning this summer. We invite you to consider joining us. Knowing what is normal is, of course, key to knowing what isn't. So over the course of the 2-day training, we will cover a range of topics, including what is normal physiological birth? What happens when things do not go as planned? What role do hormones play in pregnancy, birth, and postpartum? And how can we protect that important orchestration? What can we do to support breastfeeding success? And when is it time to contact professional help? Is the care we wish to provide centered on the birthing person? And is that care culturally competent and trauma-informed? How do we recognize postpartum mood disorders that go beyond what would be considered normal or the baby blues? And finally, what will be our community action plan when it is safe to gather together again? Having a baby is an extremely disruptive event, even in the best circumstances. Are there ways in which your community is particularly suited to increase access to care? Your efforts will be unique to you and those within your social networks who need support. You, of course, are the experts in caring for your community. If you would like to learn more about this project or how you can participate, you can email us at advocateformoms@gmail.com, or you can find us. We have a page on Facebook under MARA, Maternal Advocates Resource Alliance. Thanks for your time. Stay safe, stay well, stay home. Bye-bye.
Thank you for that social justice moment and for the ongoing work of all of our social justice groups during this challenging time. So this is the time set aside each Sunday for the collection of the morning's offering. 25% of our non-pledge offering each Sunday goes to HealthNet, formerly Volunteers in Medicine, to support their vital work of providing health care to medically underserved people in Monroe and Owen counties. This is an especially strong need in these times. During these live-streamed worship services, we ask that you give generously via PayPal. The link to that site will be projected and may also be found on our website's live streaming page and in the comments section of Facebook Live. Along with passing the virtual offertory basket/web link, we invite you to take this time to light a candle to mark a joy or sorrow that is touching your life right now. If you like, speak it out loud in acknowledgement of its place in your life. We too will light candles here in this sacred space. If you are unable to light a candle in your place, know that we are lighting candles here for you. The morning's offering will now be given and gratefully received.
The opening hymn we sang was by Thomas A. Dorsey. He wrote it on the occasion of the death of his wife and infant son. It is thought sometimes that liberals do not pray, that atheists do not pray, but this is one agnostic who prays, and I believe that we all pray in our own way because prayer is the voice of our heart. I invite you into a moment of meditation, which will be followed by a common prayer. Eternal Spirit of life, we send a voice in four directions into earth and sky, and in the name of all that is sacred in these gathered hearts who have gathered from all across our community, perhaps all across our nation, perhaps all around our planet. Indeed, hearts are broken everywhere these days. Our hearts sometimes are on the ground. We need to find courage to pick them up, put them back in our chest, and believe that they will beat as normal again someday. We ask for the wisdom to draw a circle around those who are suffering today. We draw a circle around those in prison throughout this nation and the world. We draw a circle around health care givers on the front line who are fighting a war against an enemy we cannot see and knows no boundaries, knows no race, knows no sexual preference. It is simply our human family struggling together. We draw a circle around that whole family, and we pray for the wisdom not to hate, but to love. To hold in our hearts even those with whom we disagree, even those with whom we have great misunderstandings, even those whom we might think we hate. We hold them in our hearts this morning because they too are part of our family. Give us the wisdom to love, because love and love alone will see us through. In four directions, to earth and sky. And in the name of all that is sacred in our gathered hearts, we do give thanks and say, blessed be. Amen. Our gift of music from Handel's Messiah.
Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. The last trumpet.
Thank you. From the Messiah. May we have the wisdom to know that a Messiah comes with every sunrise. May we wake up to it with thanksgiving in our hearts. I was told a long time ago that the task of ministers is twofold, at least. One is priestly and the other is prophetic. And so this morning, I'd like to do a little bit of both. Prophetic, not in the sense of telling the future. That's never what prophecy was meant to do. Prophetic simply means speaking truth to power. Priestly, not in the sense of praying to some wizard of Oz in the sky who will answer all our wants and desires or needs, but praying rather, and priestly rather, of understanding the language of the human heart and speaking in love to one another. I'd like to share with you the words of a person who writes under the name the Briar Philosopher for the Jackson County Sun in Kentucky. The sun's going to come up tomorrow. My husband told me this many times when things were rough growing up and it seemed like nothing was ever going to go right, his mother would always say to him, "The sun's going to come up tomorrow." And that thought carried him through. I was standing on the back porch of the office about 10 o'clock a few moments ago and noticing how the sun was just starting to come up across the ridge directly behind this building. It's not at all unusual in Appalachia for the sunrise to come later or earlier, depending on your particular elevation on any given morning. We know that, and we don't let it bother us, because if we know nothing else, we know that the sun is going to come up. The timing of its rise is just a matter of where we stand. In the last few weeks, the world seems to have been turned on its head, and it's hard to know where to stand or what to do. But we in Appalachia are no stranger to such things. We have walked through hardship after hardship, and we have done so as family, as neighbor, as friends, and as community. This time will be no different. One thing you learn rather quickly when living in East Kentucky hills is that you can't climb a ridge all at once. You can't plow a field in one turn. You can't raise a crop in one morning, and you can't raise a child in an afternoon. We may be more suited here in Appalachia to an understanding that you can't walk through more than one day at a time. It is that perspective that will allow us to walk through this time with our sanity intact. Growing up, many of us were endowed with what I can only call a farmer's perspective. Perhaps it is the uncertainty of farming and the processes on which we must rely that has helped us to gain this perspective. A farmer can't know when she plants her crops whether or not the rains are going to come or the sun is going to shine when she needs them. A farmer cannot know in the spring what conditions will be when it is time to cut the hay. All we can do and all we can know is that each day the sun comes up, and we must set ourselves to the task at hand until the sun goes down. When we lay ourselves down to sleep at night, it is often with that reminder from the Sermon on the Mount that sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. We have done our best for the day, and we cannot touch one grain of sand in tomorrow until we get there. There's a certain peace in that perspective. When you couple that perspective with the ability of we hill people, we make do and work through the problem, you have a combination that is unstoppable. We may be slowed and we may be struggling, but we don't know how to stop. We are called briars or briar hoppers by folks outside Kentucky, and we need not take offense at that. For it is the traits of the briar that will see us through whatever comes our way. There are a lot of briars of plant variety in Kentucky, and I did in my childhood hop, stomp, trample, and hoe more of them than I sometimes want to remember. I learned to have a great deal of respect for briars over the years. Briars are tough, resilient, adaptable plants. They're good at surviving just about anything. You can knock them down, but not without a few wounds to yourself, and they usually don't stay down for long. They're a lot like people who make the backbone of this region, the common folks, those who keep finding a way to make it even when life throws obstacles in their way. Briars don't give up, and they don't give in, even when it's tempting. That is what Briar philosophy is. That's how we figure out how to understand the world around us and adapt to the changes that come our way. People outside this region often think of us as ignorant, but we know things that give us the edge when it comes to understanding what we now face. Every farmer knows already about social distancing. If you have a sick animal, you distance that animal from the others until it is well. If you have a plant that has a blight or scale, that plant is removed from the general population. We're good at applying the knowledge we have to the situation at hand, and that is why now, when the chips are down, we are not daunted. We are worried. We are cautious. Some of us are even scared, but it is with courage and resilience that we face the coming days. We will climb this ridge one step at a time. We will make do. We will live this ordeal one day at a time, and when that day is done, we will lay down knowing that no matter how deep the valley, no matter how high the ridge, the sun will come up in the morning, and we will rise with it. The Briar philosopher. The sun will come up in the morning for most of us. That is true. We will rise with it. But all across this nation, people are dealing with the fact that the sun will not come up for some of their loved ones. I have been with many people at the time of their death over the last 30 years. Some of them beautiful as they died, and some of them fearful. But I've always thought that one of life's greatest gifts that one can receive is to die in the presence of those who love you. That's what's so tragic about war. That's what's so tragic about ridiculous violence. But to die in the presence of someone who loves you is a gift. And that gift is being denied both by the dying and those who love them, all across our land, all across the world. And so we need at this time to come together in spirit. We need at this time to be able to share that love, not simply over the internet, but over the spiritual presence that surrounds this planet, that is part of our lives. That's the priestly part. That is speaking to the hearts that are broken. That is looking for ways to heal ourselves and our nation. There is that, we talk about this pandemic, and I want to be very clear that this pandemic is not a curse or revenge from an angry God. Sadly, Billy Graham's daughter stated last week that this is revenge for same-sex marriage. How absurd. This is Palm Sunday. This is the Sunday that celebrates Holy Week in the Christian faith. On this day, supposedly, many years ago, Jesus came to Jerusalem. And he didn't come with xenophobia. He didn't come cursing those, but he came with a message to those in power. He came preaching good news to the poor. He came preaching liberation to those who were in bondage. He came talking about changing a nation for his people. And I have to believe very strongly that Jesus knew that they were going to kill him for it. And I do not believe in any part of my body or mind that it was because God was angry at humanity and he had to kill his own son to calm his anger. How absurd is that? How ridiculous is that? Redemptive violence is a lie. I believe Jesus died because he came speaking truth to power, because he stood for his people. Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968. Yesterday, the anniversary of that assassination. Martin Luther King was speaking truth to power. And I believe, and as you read his speech that he gave the night before his assassination, I believe he knew very well that the chances were very good that they were going to kill him for it. But he spoke truth to power anyway. He continually walked speaking good news to the poor, speaking liberation for the bonded, speaking truth to power. This pandemic, this sickness that is upon our planet is not the curse of an angry God. It is simply a virus. Now, I think it's important. The sermon title originally was Pandemic, Politics, Power, and Prayer, and I'll get to all of those as we go through here. The pandemic that we're dealing with needs truth about it. And we simply have a person in the White House who is far more concerned about his TV ratings beating Bachelor than telling us the truth about this pandemic. The fact is that the very people in China who represented our government, our CDC, and our pandemic team, who were in China to help China watch for this type of thing, were removed by this administration, brought home to save a few millions of dollars, I suppose. And at the same time, we spend $11 billion on a wall on our southern border to keep out asylum seekers, but it doesn't keep out the virus. Martin Luther King began to speak truth to power about military spending, and he said, any nation that spends exorbitant amounts on defense spending, far more above that is rational, instead of spending money on social uplift, is approaching spiritual death. We now have a defense budget that will nearly be $1 trillion this year when you add everything in. $1 trillion. And yet we are cutting our budget for social services. We are cutting our budget to feed children. We are approaching spiritual death. And we need to be truthful about it. When the emperor is naked, it is time for the church to point out his nudity. And we should be doing so. As Martin Marty called Christianity, American Christianity, the civil religion, American civil religion, in that it has wedded itself to the corporate model. It has wedded itself to an economic model that devastates the poor, that ignores the downtrodden, that cares more for profit than for people. That's why they killed Jesus. That's why they killed Martin Luther King Jr. That's the prophetic word of the church. Health care for all is not a political issue, it is a moral issue. It is a moral issue that many people in this country this year will lose their homes, will go bankrupt because they cannot afford health care that's going to come from this virus. Feeding the hungry is not a political issue, it is a moral issue. And the church should stand on behalf of the hungry. The living wage is not a political issue, it's a moral issue. And it is time we took it on. Perhaps this pandemic provides us an opportunity to rediscover what it really means to be a community, what it really means to care for one another, what it really means to be a human being. Power. Where is our power? Our power is in the voting booth, and I hope everyone registers and votes. It is in the voting booth, but it is also in the streets. It is also with our voices, and even though we cannot gather in mass to protest these days, we can gather somehow or another on the internet, through our letters, through our phone calls, and we can let those who are in power know we are here. And that is our responsibility to do. Our power is in loving one another and caring for one another. Our power is in accepting our place in the human family and accepting the other's place as well. Pandemic, politics, power, and prayer. Prayer is simply the words of our heart. I remember several years ago when I was driving truck and I was getting in a truck to go to the Gulf Coast, hauling corn down and lumber back. My twin brother and I split a job, and I would drive to the Gulf Coast and roar back up to Indiana, and he'd get in a truck and roar to Canada. He'd come back, and I'd go to the Gulf Coast. We did that for, I don't know how long. It was too long. But one day I was getting in the truck to go to the Gulf Coast, and I got a call from Linda. And she told me that our son had just been hit by a car and was being raced to the trauma center in Cincinnati. My sister-in-law and I, Vivian, drove to Cincinnati, drove like a maniac, all the way wondering if my son would be alive when I got there. And I say to any atheist who does not believe in prayer, try that. Try that when someone you love is on the verge of being gone. Try not praying. If your heart is not bursting, something is wrong. Because prayer comes from our heart. And it doesn't matter who you pray to, it matters for what you pray. Because for what you pray that is what you will work for. If we pray for peace, we'll work for peace. If we pray for war, we'll fight in war. If we pray for vengeance, we will be vengeful. If we pray for forgiveness, we will forgive. And this is a personal thing. This past few days, we're dealing with our oldest sister being in the hospital and maybe at the end of her days. And it brought me to thinking, we stand always on the cusp, don't we? We have this idea, we have plans that go forever. And we have this idea that, we're going to be out there, we're going to be here for a long time. But every day we stand on the cusp. We really do. We can not only not live more than one day at a time, we really can't take more than one breath at a time. Try it. How do you take more than one breath at a time? And every breath we take may be our last one. When I was retiring here from a few years ago, Guy Loftman came up to me and said, well, I'll always remember to me, your mantra was, love is unconditional. I said, well, I can live with that. And I like that. And I change mantras every once in a while. I'm 70 years old now, and I'm in that person at risk. I have a kind of a respiratory problem myself. And I have to recognize that I only live one breath at a time. And if the one I just took is the last one, how do I want to give it back? Do I want to be angry? Do I want to be hateful? Do I want to be ready to fight? Or do I want to be ready to love? That's the question. And as I've been with people as they were dying, the wonderful thing is to find these people who have found a way to let go. Let go of all the things, the wrongs that were done to them. Learned that forgiveness was not for the forgiven, but it was for the forgiver to let go. When that last breath comes, when you get near that last breath, do you really want to have to be unloading all that bull? All that stuff? You want to be trying to go through getting rid of that bad stuff? Get rid of it now. Let it go. Let go that person who hurt you, betrayed you. Let go that person who didn't listen. Let go that person who mistreated you. Let it go. Because your next breath may be your last. And you don't want to pack that stuff with you. It's better to be light. It's better to get rid of it now. In this holy week of Christianity, it may be a good time for us to understand that we can let it go, that love can be unconditional. As Paul Tillich said, love exerts its greatest force when it overcomes estrangement. even the estrangement of death. I encourage you to look deep into your hearts this morning, to know that there are people who suffer and will be suffering through this pandemic in ways that we have not known in this nation for a long time. And what they need is a community who will love them, put their spiritual arms around them, hold them up, and pray for a new sun to rise on our nation. Pray for a sun to rise with the teachings of a Messiah that will teach us more about love and less about hate, that will not bring us xenophobia, homophobia, or any other phobia, but will bring us in love with one another. Your special person next to you, the person you love the most, forgive them for anything they've done. And let them know now that when your last breath comes, it will be a breath that loves them, and they will feel loved, and you will love them back. That is what we are called to do, it seems to me, in this Holy Week. Kabir, the great Sufi prophet from the 13th century, illiterate, all we have are songs that he sang. And one of his best ones was just a little phrase. He said, "How great is our God, all is forgiven, and no one is to blame." I kind of change that around because, as most of the few of you here know, anytime I use the word God, it just means love to me. It's the only definition I have. So I say, how great is our love? All is forgiven, and no one is to blame. It does not mean that we stop working to change. It does not mean that we just stop working to bring about a beloved community across this nation and across this globe. But what it means is that we can't spend our time laying blame. We need to spend our time spreading love. And love is a virus of itself. When you get in its midst, you can't help but breathe it in. You can't help but feel it when you're loved. So take that virus with you. Take that virus with you. Take love into the world. And then this Holy Week, spend time thinking about the time coming when you will take your last breath. What will you leave those behind? Blessed be. Let us sing our closing hymn, wonderful song, Amazing Grace, because I reckon that's the only reason we're all here is by grace.
I
after the service, there will be a Zoom coffee hour. Coffee, as you know, is the Unitarian Universalist Communion. And that hookup to that Zoom can be found on our Facebook page and web page. And it will open, I suppose, at 12:15, but since the preacher went a little long, it's going to be a little bit. I would like to close with a prayer. It is a prayer for a pandemic from the Facebook page of Grace United Church in Sarnia, Ontario. May we who are merely inconvenienced remember those whose lives are at stake. May we who have no risk factors remember those who are vulnerable. May we who have the luxury of working from home remember those who must choose between preserving their health or making their rent. May we who have the flexibility to care for our children when their schools close remember those who have no options. May we who have to cancel our trips remember those that have no place to go. May we who are losing our margin money in the tumult of the economic market remember those who have no margin at all. May we who settle in for a quarantine at home remember those who have no home. During this time when we cannot physically wrap our arms around each other, let us find ways to be the loving embrace of God to our neighbors. Blessed be. Amen.